Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Equalizer. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, when we had that opening when that guy was trying to hack into something, I would have never guessed it was Bishop. My money was like, oh, he's trying to get to Harry or something like that. It's like, well, Harry gets tied in, but it's Bishop. In particular, the hacker was going after one bit of information about Bishop, and it turns out because basically Bishop's worried, because at first he's like, maybe this is kind of like, I guess it started off maybe like as a ransom situation, and now it's like, cool, like for him it's like, if word gets out there, it exposes so much of, like, you know, every operation he's done, like national security's at, you know, threat. So he turns to Rob and is like, I need your help. I know he's alive. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You need an asset brought out of the cold, plus you're hanging around his widow. And I'm like, oh, so because I was under the impression like Harry and Mel met after he already quote unquote died. It's like, no, they were already married when he died, quote unquote died. So I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was always under the impression that they got married after he went underground, but that was interesting. Because I was also curious. I was like, did his family know about Mel? So it's like, yeah, they knew about it, but like they probably. I'm curious if she having any interaction with his family then, or was it such a tight knit thing of like people in that world knew about them being married, but maybe his family did? Because we've had reference to Harry's family, but we've never really gone into it. Like how much of his family is actually still alive? Is it siblings? Is it his parents? Are they both going? Like what those circumstances are? They haven't really gone into it, but it just makes me wonder, because I'm like, that's got to be an awkward conversation, because that could also be why Mel doesn't probably like go, like, all we know is like he said in the past like he had to leave behind his family and friends. So there's some family that, you know, Mel has to be avoiding too. But once again, like I said, it depends on whether or not they know that Harry was married at the time. Like, not unless that was like only people in their realm and circle of like the intelligence like world would know. But tangents and all that aside, it's like, I know he's still alive, so I need his help. So, and I love Harry sprucing the place up, and even Mel's like, you're clean the place up for Bishop? It's like, well, yeah, because, you know, he might be my best shot at kind of getting to, you know, returning to having somewhat of a normal life. You know, I'll be able to return to the world of the living. But he needs Bishop needs Harry to look into finding out what files they actually access. And ultimately he does find one, but it's already too late. He can't do anything about it. It turns out the file is connected to Bishop's son, a son that's like, he's kept a secret he's kept for 25 years. Basically, on a mission, there was a woman, Adara, like, she became an asset that he had to protect to get her out of Syria. I believe it was Syria, right? And one thing led to another. By the time they came to the stage, like, she was pregnant, but they both knew it was in the best interest of their child for him not to know, because, like, it, you know, that's been a complicated thing too, because there's that episode last season where Rob helped his friend's daughter, because at the same time that Delilah was finding out about Robin, she was helping with this daughter who had found out about what her dad was up to. Because what her dad had told her, and they spent like a long time not talking afterwards, and eventually, like, you know, he ended up dying, which is so sad. But it's just like, it's just that situation of your child will be in a lot more danger, because people will always, you know, it's like your classic superhero situation of people can't know my secret identity, because if they do, the people closest to me will be in danger. So there's that element to it. But by the time Robin and Bishop got there, he was already taken, and so the guy wants to meet with them, and Bishop wants to go alone, but Robin's like, no, you've kind of been handling this alone, you know, this entire time. It's like, let me back you up on this. So they go, and it's a guy who's nicknamed the Architect. And it turns out Adara, Zane's mom, the woman that Bishop loved, turns out Bishop got her away from this guy. I'm like, so, oh, that's interesting. And ultimately, I think that also explains, like, why, like, I'm jumping ahead, why he explained, like, oh, like, Zane, he will go because, like, yeah, he's not in this to kill anyone innocent as he claims, which we'll get to that discussion point later. But for him, I think it's like, right, despite everything, the woman he loved, he did care about, like that is her child. So I think out of respect and how much he cared about her, because before he became who he became as the monster that he is, he was just a normal guy, and him and Adara met. But then like Adara, like after a while, like, because we found out like what happened to him. Basically, he got radicalized because he's an architect because he went to study to be an architect, and then while he was away from home, like a strike happened and his parents died in it, and he came back and became radicalized, and why he became the terrorist that he is, you know. And that's the sad thing. It's just all it, you know, what could point someone in direction in that type of direction is just simply like, right, revenge. When you've had something terrible happen to you, tragedy can morph you into someone you don't even recognize anymore, which does not in any shape or form justify what he's ever done, all the people he's hurt, the people he's killed. But at the very least, it is this understanding and this sad aspect of the world. That's why so many people can be radicalized, because all it takes is I say right person, but I mean the wrong person coming to you and like feeding into the hate that's already in your heart because of what he lost. Like he was easily able to be swayed into like this hateful terroristic position because of what he'd lost. And it's like, you know, it's kind of like you want to make people pay, essentially, you know? So, but like I said, I think in debt to Adara, like he would never like kill her son. I wonder, did he know about Adara being dead? Because like Bishop had brought it up, like she died of like cancer 6 months ago. You're like, Jesus, that C word gets tossed around a while. Like another character in something else. It's like, oh yeah, like what happened to him? It's like, oh yeah, that character died of cancer. I'm like, Jesus. I mean, it's a real thing, but it's such a tragedy because like Bishop never reached out to Zane in all that time, but he's like, why would, like, I mean, what do I go? Hey, I'm this guy you don't know. I'm actually your father. Like for him, he feels like I've been out of your life for so long. You don't really know me. Like who am I to really just like jump into the middle of your life? But despite everything, Bishop is doing everything he can to save his son. Obviously, you had the reservation from Harry and Mel because it's like, right, because the architect, he wants a way out of New York because like every federal agency is going to be looking for him, is locking down New York to get him. But it's like, I need a way out. He knows Bishop. It's like, oh, you were able to spirit someone away, referencing Adara. It's like, oh, so I want you to do the same thing for me. But it's like, oh, you're William Bishop. You'll find out. Yeah, you're tied to the CIA, plus you run your own security business now. So it's like, I know you. I trust you to get this done. If not, your son dies. But essentially, the thing is, like, Harry nor Mel were really wanting to let this evil person go, but it's like, that's not their plan. It's like, the moment they find out Zane is okay, like, they'll take care of him. But even Bishop was like, if I'm not able to get to Zane in time, you do what you need to do. And Ramen kind of understood. So that's the interesting element, because the architect had like a device where it's basically like, if I don't touch this like every 15 minutes, you can't kill me, cut off my finger and try to use it. It needs a heartbeat and everything, so I need to still be alive. So if I don't reset this every 15 minutes, my men get the cue to kill the boy. So, and it led to this very interesting conversation about, you know, because obviously they needed to track down one of because Robin had to play that role in the role of like, right, I'll be the one that takes him to the private plane that's supposed to take him to Cuba. Bishop had set that all up. But the thing is that the print that Bishop had gotten earlier in the episode, he needed Harry to run it. And it's like, well, there's a CIA database. I have a back door to it. You can access it. But he needs to be in and out within under 2 minutes so that he doesn't get tracked. But Harry doesn't, and I love that he's like, despite everything people might say about me, I leaked the information I did because I do, in fact, love my country. And it's just like, yeah, and you know, it's like, oh, Harry, you're a good person. And even Mel's like, I wish you weren't as good of a person as you are. But he's like, yeah, I know, especially under these circumstances. But luckily, they were able to get in, get out, and get an address under, like, they only had like 2 seconds left. But luckily, they were able to get the address. Obviously, Bishop let himself get captured just so that he can find out where Zane was in the time frame. And I loved everything that, like, Zane's immediately on top of everything. He's like, all right, there were like 7 people in total. The 3 people that brought me here, he's like, I've heard 4 different voices. They come in here every hour to check on me. And Bishop's like, whoa. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, my mom trained me for this just in case anything ever happened. I'm like, and Bishop, you know, he ends up commenting on it later. He's like, yeah, I see a lot of that kid in me. But it's like, the sad thing is at first Zane thought like the architect was his dad because he saw the picture. And I guess, like, the reason why she kept that picture, because it was a reminder, I guess, of where she came from and the threat and the kind of evil. I guess she wanted herself to always remember that he was potentially still out there, that he was a threat that could always come after her and potentially her son. I think that's what it was. Or maybe it was supposed to be, what I internalized it as initially, though, was like a reminder. She can't keep any pictures of Bishop because it'll be like, oh, who's this guy? It's like, you wanted to keep that a secret, so you kept a picture of what was before as a reminder of like, right, Bishop saved me. The man that I love saved me, and he whisked me away, and you know, so I'm, you know, because she sent him a lot of updates, because he's like, every like recital, every game he ever went to, like, I was there, just not in the capacity as a father. So I wondered, did him and Adara kind of meet up in moments like that, like stolen moments here and there? Because if they weren't able to have any moments together fully, like probably except for like the contact about Zane, like, I'd want them to have stolen moments here and there, especially knowing that she's gone now, and especially, like, how important they were to each other. Like, it wasn't just a one-way thing. Like, he loved her and she loved him, you know? Because even, like, because she talks about the fact is that her, Zane said, like, my mom was like, yeah, like, my father was the love of her life. And I think Bishop felt good to hear that. But like I said, he thought the architect was his father. It's like, knowing my father's a monster. But it's like, no, he's not your dad. And it's like, do you know who my real dad is? If we get out of here, I'll give you all that information. He's like, I'm gonna hold you to it. I did like that when they did break free, though. Zane can handle himself. Like, picked up the gun pretty quickly. It's like, what kind of training did your mom put you through? But maybe it's just some natural instincts on, you know, he kind of adapted from Bishop, being, genetically or something like that. But also, like, even in hand-to-hand combat, I'm like, yo, like, this kid's pretty good. And it's like, yeah, chip off the old block. Luckily, Mel was able to show up in the end when that last guy was about to target. I was like, oh, don't tell me. Like, I figured Bishop wasn't going to get killed, but I thought, like, he'd get shot and injured. But it's like, no, Mel showed up in time. And I love that she's like, I'm still angry at you. He was like, you were always mad at me, but good shot. Because he ended up telling Harry the truth. It's like, your circumstances are complicated because you pissed off some very important people, and those very important people aren't in a position to forgive right now. So, getting your resurrection, you brought back to life, it's going to be extremely hard and difficult because it's a process. So. But aside from all of that, we did have the sad thing is Robin had to burn a bridge because she ended up having to turn to someone that she considered an ally to help with this whole architect thing. But they immediately recognized, and obviously she's like, it's extenuating circumstances. He's like, I do this for you. Never come here again. We are no longer friends. And she had to burn that bridge. And I even love the thing of like, I didn't even know this was a thing. I guess it's a thing where like, I guess because of maybe the time frame that it is, or maybe it's just a thing in general, but it's like you have to not shave your beard because I think it's connected to like your worship of Allah, their worship of Allah. Like I was like, oh, that's interesting because I've never heard that there was like a religious reason for that as well. But for like, Robin tried to call him out because like, it's like, oh, you're not this, and it's like, right, what would Allah prefer, you to keep your beard or for you to be alive? She said that just to say that, but it's like, once again, his justification for what he does, it's like, you may not like what I do, but the fact is because like Robin is like, what happened to you was a tragedy. Because for him, it's like, I don't kill innocent people despite the narrative that other peoples, in particular Americans, make. The fact of the matter is there is collateral damage in a war that I didn't start, but I intend to like finish in my own regard. And when they were, obviously like he is very adept at what he does because Robin was able to come up like, excuses. At the airport when like the feds were interrogating them, and it's like, oh yeah, like he's from Cuba, and it's like he doesn't speak English. So like, oh, he doesn't speak, and it's like, yes, in Havana they speak, but he's from here, and and then luckily he does know how to speak Spanish. Is that Spanish in Cuba? I don't know if that's considered Spanish or not. I just, that could just be my, assumption. But it's like, oh, how'd you know? It's like, yeah, you spent like 4 years in Madrid, so it was a pretty good guess. But once again, it is interesting because it's that thing of like, once again, it's like, what was the conversation came about because, you know, it's like about on like Americans don't know anything about honor, and she's like, oh, there's no real honor in this deal when there's a gun to your head, and he's like, there's guns to everyone's head, because especially because the US in particular has had its gun pointed at other people's heads, so people kind of have to bow down to it, you know. And it's like kind of like the reign that the America has had as the superpower that is. And it is, once again, that complicated thing of like Robin saying, like, yeah, what happened to you was a terrible thing, but it doesn't make what you do right. And he's like, no, but it makes it necessary. And then Robin's like, oh, that's funny. Sounds like something an American would say, you know? That philosophy of believing like, yeah, I might not be doing the right thing, but what I'm doing is a necessity. Once again, it's just like how a lot of, like, you know, it's this thing of like, yes, like, what happened to him was a terrible thing, and it's like a lot of people never really think about like how, like, you never know what the ripple effect can do, like who a child today could end up becoming a monster later on because of the circumstances that happened to them. Once again, does not justify him being the monster that he is. But when the time came, like, he was like, okay, when the timer hits 0, I'll press the button again. And he's like, but Robin's like, how do I know? He's like, you're just going to have to, that was a constant conversation throughout the episode, or you're just going to have to trust me. And Robin didn't, like, because he was like, oh, like, when were you planning, like, how long was it going to be before you tried to kill me? Because we captured William Bishop, so. But despite everything, he's like, you care too much, so there's no way you're going to kill me. And Robin's like, you're right. And she put him down because it's like, yes, despite caring about Zane, she cannot let a monster like him go get released just to hurt more and kill more people. It's like, I had to. And so luckily she was able to use the, get one more print off of him. So Bishop and Zane had 15 minutes to get out. So, but luckily everything worked out in the end. But once again, Zane is asking questions, but you can tell he did kind of figure it out at the end that Bishop was his dad, because he was like, I can't tell you, like, because if the architect being dead was like the danger, then why do I need to worry about it? He's like, I can't tell you, it's classified, you know, especially because it's like, is this tied to like my dad and why it was so important for me to never meet him, why my mom was like always be on guard and stuff. But the moment he sees the way Bishop is looking at Adara's picture, he's like, so, Bishop, who are you exactly? And he said, I did what I do best. I lie. But it's like, yeah, if he is your kid, who's to say he doesn't already know the truth? Because Bishop was like, yeah, it's not the time. He's like, right. Is it because it's not right for him, or is it just wasn't right for you? So I think, you know, Robin can speak from that department of like, well, Delilah knows. Granted, she would have always preferred to tell Delilah in her own time, but sometimes you don't have a choice. Bishop's hands were pushed, but even he kind of realizes when Robin says like, oh, there's a good chance he knows. I was like, I think he does. He saw you looking at the picture, realizing like, right, you're the person my mom was talking about. So we'll see what their dynamic looks like going forward, whether there's anything going on with that. It is interesting too, because this episode is kind of about lost loves in many different regards. You have the thing with Bishop, but you also have the thing with Vi, where she basically gets visited by the daughter of a woman she loved back in college. And initially she kind of brushed it off, being like, oh, that picture is not, I'm not the one who did that. You're looking for the wrong person. But the daughter gave her the thing of like, yeah, if you change your mind. And she told Delilah the true story. And, you know, she's like, yeah, and that's it. And Delilah's like, no, there's definitely more to it. But basically what they had was special. But for her, she thought, considering the time and everything, there's no way we could have, you know, made that work on the outside. But she has constantly wondered, like, what her life would be if she had, like, you know, given into it. Would have probably been a struggle considering the time and everything. But where her life would be right now, you know? Because we know Vi's the type of person that's like, no matter what the case may be, she's a fighter, so she would have fought. You know, she stood up in protest in many other regards. She would have stood up and fought in this regard to love the person that she wanted to love. And so, even, you know, Vi kept being like, oh, I'm not really thinking about it. But yes, I have thought about it to the point I looked her up on Facebook, and it's like, yeah, she's in, she lives in Connecticut and stuff like that. it's like, but, you know, because it turns out, like, she got divorced a couple years ago, so she's potentially in the single department, so rekindling lost love and everything. Especially, once again, like, Bishop doesn't have that opportunity, but Vi potentially does. So I like there's a little bit of a parallel there in that, like I said, the conversation of love and lost love. And kind of, you know, secrets and things forgotten, but never fully forgotten. So we see her kind of meeting up with her at the end. So what goes on, what happens from there, we'll have to wait and see. They didn't cast someone, so we might not be, like, either they just didn't cast her this episode, or, like, this might just be a off-screen type of thing, in the sense of, like, maybe they don't rekindle their love, because I feel like if they did, they would have cast someone, but it's like, well, why cast someone for, like, the last, like, minute of this scene? So, like, we'll just show it on Vi's face, like, she sees the person she was in love with. So we'll see whether that becomes something or not. Hopefully it does, you know? Old love's rekindling. Just kind of got me thinking about it. I've never been in that position where I've gotten back with an ex. I've never experienced, like, rekindling with an old love. Not really in a position to. I won't get into, like, my love life and everything, but it's just like, I'm not really in a position. But you never know how the world works. But I see that just unlikely in my cases. But regardless, aside from that, you had the conversation between Mel and Harry, because Harry's like, man, I don't think I'm going to ever get out of this, will I? You know, because the hurtful thing is the hope. You know, keeping that hope alive can be a double-edged sword. But Mel's like, no, I'll be the one that carries the hope for us. You know, we couldn't find out a way this time, but it's like, don't worry, we'll find some way out of it. And it's like, yeah, and you're like, oh, that's sweet. And just before they kiss, someone comes banging down the door. You're like, wait, what? And FBI roll up. You're like, wait, how did you? Because of him hacking the CIA, even though he, like, got out in time, even though he had, like, 2 seconds left, it still was enough for them to backtrack. I mean, we are talking about a big-time organization like the CIA. Like, of course, they're going to be able to track that down. Even if you had that 2-minute window, it still was enough. It just took them a while to finally track you. So Harry gets locked up, you know. And so now it's like he's being taken away. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. How the, you know, now it's like, how do you save Harry, like, calling in every favor? Because I know Bishop's going to be happy, you know, because it's like, right, he wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for you, because Mel was, like, didn't want Harry to do it, but luckily everything worked out because he did what he did. So, like I said, Robin's going to have to call in some favors, do something, but it's like, if she does break Harry out of this again, he would probably have to go, like, I don't know if there's any way of going deep underground after being caught, after being deep underground. So this is burned as well. So, like, his neck's, like, because if he disappeared, he'd have to, like, probably super disappear, and there'd be no coming back from it. But whatever this may be, it might present the opportunity to change things, might put the government in a position where they have no choice but to stop coming after Harry. We'll see. Hopefully everything plays out that way, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.